Napoleon III, the Desperate Emperor. Most people have heard about how the French populace went through a revolution against their monarchy, only for a man named Napoleon Bonaparte to use the chaos to take over the country. But would you believe that it happened twice? In the 19th century, Bonaparte's nephew led a military coup in the wake of the 1848 French Revolution, becoming Napoleon III in the process. Obviously, there's a lot more to Napoleon III. That's why we present these 16 facts about this controversial emperor. Number 1, that's Mr. to you. When he was the emperor, Bonaparte's full title was Napoleon III, by the grace of God and the will of the nation, Emperor of the French. Other titles he held during his life included Knight of the Order of the Garter, UK, Knight of the Royal Order of the Seraphim, Sweden, and Knight of the Order of the Golden Fleece, Spain. Number 2, welcome to the world. Charles Louis Napoleon Bonaparte was born on April 20, 1808, in the city of Paris. At the time, his famous uncle and namesake was still in power as the Emperor of the French. 3. Long may he reign. Napoleon III's reign as Emperor of the French lasted from December 2, 1852 until September 4, 1870. That's just under 18 years total. It might not seem like that long, but that's around 7 years longer than his namesake ruled as emperor, so that's not too bad. 4. Final goodbyes. Bonaparte last saw his famous uncle at the grand estate known as the Chateau de Malmaison. The Bonaparte family had a reunion of sorts shortly before the emperor went off to fight the Battle of Waterloo. We can safely assume that the family should have wished him good luck a little harder than they did. 5. The Family Bonaparte. Bonaparte was the son of Louis Bonaparte, who by the grace of his brother, Emperor Napoleon I, was the King of Holland at the time of Napoleon III's birth. His mother was Hortense de Beauharnais. When Bonaparte was baptized, Emperor Napoleon I stood as godfather for the child. 6. Broken home. Bonaparte's parents were not terribly fond of each other and only lived together for a brief period of time. Their marriage was only done through the arrangements of Emperor Napoleon I's wife, Josephine, who is the mother of Bonaparte's mother. Out of concern that she wasn't giving her husband any heirs, Josephine suggested that her daughter by another marriage should marry the emperor's brother to produce an heir for the empire. Their marriage proved successful in this regard at least. 7. Call it a forced foreign exchange program. With the downfall of the French Empire and the second abdication of Emperor Napoleon I, Bonaparte and the rest of his family had to hit the old dusty trail. As a child in the company of his mother, Bonaparte traveled through Switzerland and Germany, learning to speak French with a German accent that he kept for the rest of his life. 8. Ciao Bella. By the time he was 15, Bonaparte and his mother moved to Rome, where many members of his family were established at a villa. He spent the rest of his teenage years living in Italy, studying history, the Italian language, and social skills geared chiefly towards romance and seduction. If only all teenagers got that kind of education. 9. Respecting the chain of command. You might be wondering why Bonaparte called himself Napoleon III. The reason was that there had already been, at least in theory, a ruler named Napoleon II. The son of Emperor Napoleon I, Napoleon II was touted as his heir apparent. Upon his first fall from power in 1814, Napoleon I tried to persuade his victorious enemies to allow his son to rule France instead, but this offer was dismissed, presumably through sputters of laughter. However, during the second fall of power, Napoleon II was briefly the titular ruler of France, albeit without actually getting to rule. It was a sign of respect to the son of Napoleon I, therefore, to take the name Napoleon III. 10. Partisan. During Bonaparte's early youth, he joined a secret organization based in Italy. Known as the Carbonari, this network of revolutionaries operated in the name of forming a constitutional government which would unite Italy and end oppression. That was the theory, of course, but in practice, the Carbonari were splintered and lacked a real uniting political ideology. In Bonaparte's case, the unit he was involved with was combating the Austrians, who were spreading their influence into the north of Italy. 11. Time to go. Ultimately, Bonaparte's time with the Carbonari ended in disastrous defeat. In 1831, the Austrian government united with the papacy in Italy to stamp out the Carbonari societies once and for all. Bonaparte barely escaped Italy with his life, leading to him and his mother fleeing back to France. 12. Don't get involved with revolutionaries. Ironically, while the Austrians were dealing with Bonaparte and his Carbonari allies, Bonaparte's father was staying in Austria. After he lost his throne, wealth, and position, Louis Bonaparte was granted asylum by the Austrians. He stayed in their country for the rest of his life. While Bonaparte's loyalists claimed that Louis was the heir to his brother's legacy, Louis refused to get involved in a Bonapartist uprising. His son, however, was more receptive to that kind of movement, as we'll go over. 13. Ladies' Man. It should surprise nobody that an emperor might be a womanizer. In Bonaparte's case, his philandering not only got in the way of his relationship with his wife, Empress Eugenie, but during his reign as Emperor of France, his love affairs often distracted him from his responsibilities. His reputation suffered, not just within France, but across Europe. 14. Oh snap! If you think it was weird how many parallels Bonaparte had with Emperor Napoleon I, you were far from the first to notice them, and many of the people who did notice were convinced that Bonaparte didn't match up to his namesake. Victor Hugo famously mocked Bonaparte by referring to him as Napoleon the Small. It was Karl Marx, however, who truly delivered the ultimate burn at Bonaparte's expense. In regard to the aforementioned parallels, Marx wrote, "Hegel remarks somewhere that all great world historical facts and personages appear, so to speak, twice. He forgot to add, the first time as tragedy, the second time as farce." 15. All aboard. For all his flaws, people do not give Bonaparte kudos for his role in the construction of a very expensive railway network across France. At the start of Bonaparte's reign as emperor, France had 3,500 kilometers of railway. By the time he was finished, the railroad stretched more than 20,000 kilometers. This massively improved transportation across the country and led to a huge economic boost, thanks to the expanding coal and steel industries. 16. Secrets revealed. In 1831, Bonaparte and his mother briefly returned to France after their flight from Italy and secretly moved into a Parisian hotel. Bonaparte reached out to Louis Philippe, the reigning French king, and asked for permission to join the French army as an ordinary soldier. When the king told him that he would have to change his name, Bonaparte refused to comply. Their stay in Paris was ended when it became public knowledge that Bonaparte and his mother were there. Feeling threatened, Louis Philippe ordered them out, and they returned to Switzerland. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe.